Greetings. Good afternoon to you. Kodiak the eagle is still missing from the aviary.
It's disappointing.
That's an update. Oh, well, come on.
Did you see the video of him that the runners took on Twitter? So there are a couple runners in the north side who just came upon him.
Recently, like today or
No,
yesterday?
I don't know what day it was.
Okay.
I mean, I saw it today, but I don't know what day it was. And he was standing on the sidewalk. I mean, he's huge. I mean, we all know that. He's an eagle.
Right.
But, like, seeing him in relation to people is still shocking. He's like 3 feet tall.
I wonder what's going to happen.
I don't know. And how do you catch a bird like that? I mean, you know what these birds do. They swoop in water and take, 10-pound fish out of the water.
Exactly.
They're very strong.
I would want to get within, spitting range. Would you?
No, and I wonder if people at the aviary, are they used to catching escaped birds?
Who?
Of course
Who would
not.
do that? No. And how do you do that? Like just throw a big net over the bird?
That's the only way to do it. I don't know what else you could do.
I've caught a bird once.
That's a good point. You could offer your services to
I did.
the
I
aviary.
caught
You
a
could
bird
volunteer.
once. I've had some experience. Who's been kind of locked away? Not kind of. He's been locked away.
We've all seen Shawshank, right?
Yeah. What? What?
I'm just saying that when people are used to a certain circumstance, you can't put them out in a different circumstance and assume they're going to be fine.
All of a sudden, the bird's going to go to an old boarding house and hang himself. Is that the deal?
Now you told the end.
Well, sorry. I mean, I didn't tell the whole end.
Okay.
I mean, if you haven't seen it by now, you're not going to see
You're
it,
right.
I think, right?
It only came out 30 years
Hey, look
ago.
at the bird. Oh, sorry. What was the guy's name? Because, his name was up there.
Yeah, I don't
blah,
remember.
Blah, blah was
Christy,
here.
you got nothing for me.
No.
I can look it up.
Yeah. Would you please? Yeah,
I'll look it up.
Okay,
Yeah,
look it up.
Is that James Whitmore? Was the actor? He was the guy who did the gardening thing.
You're like
I believe so.
Yeah. You're the authority when it comes to that.
From the bird to the Shawshank to the top news stories of the day. As we always do, Kath gives us a look at the news headlines. Kath, please, without further ado, give us the top forward for.
This is a curious list today.
Oh, good. I look forward to it then.
Just a little preamble.
I mean, we made a transition from an eagle to Shawshank Redemption.
For Tuesday, September 28th, 2021.
Yeah.
Number one. China, a government apparently allergic to both repentance and irony, announced plans to, wait for it, you ready? Reduce the number of abortions performed in the country.
Right. I did see this.
Yep. According to the Washington Post, the new measures arrive as China is seeking to revive its birth rate, which fell last year to its lowest point since 1961. Now, most likely that's the case because for years, abortion was not only widely available in China, but regularly forced on women who became pregnant multiple times in violation of the one-child policy. Okay, they're living what they... Right. This is what has come to pass. Many women in traditional families also chose to abort females to save their one-child quota to have a son. In 2015, with the national birth rate plummeting, China lifted the one-child policy and then banned sex-selective abortions in 2016. In 2018, they began requiring women seeking abortion. Now, keep in mind, they're not requiring men or men and women, but only requiring women to fill out a form outlining their future contraceptive and family planning arrangements. How about that?
That's the Chinese government.
So men can just skate. That's a lot of pressure on a woman. Number two. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in raised banning the eating of dogs in the country yesterday, his office said, a traditional practice that is becoming, quote, an international embarrassment.
Good.
The meat has long been part of a South Korean cuisine, with about 1 million dogs believed to be eaten annually, but consumption has declined as more people embrace dogs as companions rather than livestock.
Good.
The practice is now something of a taboo among younger generations, and pressure from animal rights activists has been mounting. South Korea's pet industry is happily on the rise, with a growing number of people living with dogs at home. The president is one of them. Moon is a known dog lover and has several canines at the presidential compound, including a mutt he rescued after taking office. Adopting Tori, that's the name of the dog, was one of Moon's pledges during his presidential campaign, and the pooch became the very first rescue dog to make its way to the Blue House.
I love it.
How about
That's
that?
good
That
news.
is good news in South Korea. And good news here in Pittsburgh. Number three. Manfred Honeck will continue through the 2027-28 season as music director of the
Wonderful.
Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, following the announcement of a 6-year extension to the renowned
Excellent.
conductor's contract. Honeck is now in his 14th season.
Wow.
According to the Trib, the Symphony is one of the most frequently touring North American orchestras, with regular appearances at Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center in New York, as well as the major venues and festivals of Europe, when, of course, we could go to Europe. Under the extended contract, Honeck will continue to lead the symphony in 10 weeks of programs at Heinz Hall, plus special projects, recordings, and tours.
Outstanding.
Isn't that
Man-
great?
Yeah, it is. He's been a man of faith and he's been on our show.
Yeah, he's been on our show. We liked him very much. Number 4. And in the world of sports, Cleveland outfielder Bradley Zimmer has earned bragging rights, at least for the time being, when he gets together with his older brother, Kyle, at the family's holiday functions. Do you know why?
No.
Because Kyle Zimmer, 30, pitches for the Kansas City Royals. And according to the USA Today, when the two teams met up last night, the two faced each other.
I love it.
For the third time this season. Those other at-bats ended in a strikeout and a walk. But Bradley, age 28, got the best of his brother in the 8th inning as he took Kyle's 85-mile-per-hour slider and deposited it 408 feet into the right field seats. Cleveland went on to win the game 8-3. Quote, "I'd say it's a mix of emotions," Bradley said to MLB.com. "I don't necessarily pride myself just because I hit that off my brother, because hopefully someday we'll be on the same team. I mean, I'd like that. It was fun. It was a little redemption, I guess. He got me the first time, so I had to make it even." It's only the 4th time that a brother hit a home run against another brother in the modern era since 1900.
I love it.
And the first time it's happened since 1975.
Wow, that's cool.
That's your top 4 at 4.
Very nice.
How about that? Isn't that cool?
It's a great story. Meanwhile, the Pirates lost.
Again.
Just saying.
Still.
Just saying.
So they're going to lose.
Well, they lose 100 games.
Oh yeah, I think they have to go 5-0 or something to not go.
A five-game win streak.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not going to happen.
Have we had a 5-game win streak this year? I think we
don't-
did. I think
you
we had
think
one
so?
5-game win. I think we're going to finish out this season without ever sweeping a team. Not a single time.
When's that ever happened?
I don't know if that's ever happened.
I
It's
hate
never
to say
happened
this.
since I've been paying attention.
Oh yeah, they're 58 and 98 right now. I hate
And they
to
only
say
have
this.
5 games left, right?
I'd kind of like to go to a game.
Would you?
I would. I've only been a couple of
He's a
times.
glutton for punishment, isn't he?
Well, I just
God
you know,
bless him.
you haven't been to any games.
I
this
haven't been
year.
to one single game.
Christy, have you been to a game?
No, I'm not a big Pirates fan.
Oh, you're not.
Oh,
a
listen
fan.
to how she
Okay,
says
all right.
that so definitively. Because
Yeah.
why would she be a Pirate
Right.
fan?
Yeah, well, the Pens lost last night.
Did they play?
They played in an exhibition game,
Yeah.
3-0.
I didn't know.
Tristan Jari gave up some goals.
Yeah. No surprise.
Oh, great.
Good.
Oh, great.
All right, tell us about Shawshank. You got anything there?
Yeah, his name was Brooks,
Brooks was
Brooks.
and
here.
he wrote Brooks was here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brooks was here. Right. Thank you. You'd think we could have thought of that.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yesterday, it took me, 5-6 minutes to come up with Donnie Marie. So coming up.
Wait, that was the PAL thing, right?
Yes, that was PAL.
Pastor Appreciation Lunch.
Lunch.
Coming up October 19th, I do believe.
Yes, we're going to have a
Hilton Garden.
terrific time. It's a free event for any pastor, any associate pastor, and their spouse.
Very nice. And Brooks will be there.
I don't know if Brooks will be there.
He might show
Christy
up.
and John and I will be there.
Heck
though.
yeah, we will be.
And I might ask Donnie Marie.
Because Kath will get all gussied up.
Maybe.
Okay.
We'll
Take
see.
a break, come back.
Our friend Michelle Van Loon in the On Deck Circle. She's the author of a bunch of books, but today she's talking about changing the landscape of the church.
Nope, keep going. What is it to be Jewish and a Christian? Our next guest is exactly that. Michelle Van Loon is a regular guest on our show. She is the author of 5 books, including her most recent, Becoming Sage, Cultivating Meaning, Purpose, and Spirituality in Midlife. But she wrote a piece that was really fascinating and extremely revealing, I would believe, at Fathom magazine, The Landscape of the Church. It'll take work to cross the chasms that divide us. Michelle, welcome back. I love this piece. Well done.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's a few words to describe what has been a many decade process of learning to live between two worlds and not be entirely welcome or at home in either of
I
them.
bet. Yeah.
Yeah, that must be a hard position, Michelle. Let's talk about your background first then. You grew up in an observant Jewish household. What was it like?
Well, I describe it to people as more like a Jerry Seinfeld level of observance.
Okay, we can relate to
we
that.
We understand that.
Does that help?
Yeah, actually it does.
Newman.
So we celebrated holidays. There was some synagogue attendance, but it wasn't really a deeply committed religious household, but it was very culturally aware of what it meant to be Jewish. So I kind of got immersed in Jewish culture. Both of my parents, who are now deceased, are Jewish, and and here am I. So.
Right. Okay. So now, then you grow up in a household that is culturally Jewish. And I think a lot of Christians would go, well, I grew up in a very culturally Christian home as well, right? So we all understand that. But at some point in your life, you became a follower of Jesus Christ. How did that happen?
I was a teenager, and it was kind of the tail end of the Jesus movement. Okay. So there was a lot of talk in the culture and certainly in my high school about Jesus. And I grew up understanding that was the God of the Gentiles. It had nothing to do with us. That was made very clear to me. But a friend who I partied a lot with came to school one day and told me she became a Christian the night before. And I was like, I looked around because it was a majority Gentile high school. And I said, well, all these people all around me are Christians. In my mind, it was one and the same kind of thing, Gentile equals Christian. And her response was, no, it's not the same. And that conversation kicked off months of inquiry and reading and wrestling. And it sounds like the script of a Christian Hollywood movie. But the first time I read the Gospel of John, I went from not believing that Jesus had anything to do with me to when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Suddenly, those words were alive, and I mark that as the beginning of my big change in my life.
That's wonderful.
It's an amazing story.
It is. It like, even now, I never get tired of thinking about it, but it made my life a lot more complicated.
I bet. So your parents, they couldn't have been really thrilled when you came home and said, I'm a Christian.
Not too excited. Well, it took me almost a year to get up the courage to tell them. So I used all my teenage partying, sneaking skills. I applied them to sneaking to things like Bible studies instead of to parties. My parents noticed that I was behaving better and wasn't, just as much of a chaos causer in the house as I'd been before. I was a very angry and depressed kid. And so when I finally had that conversation with them, they said, don't you ever talk to us about this again, and as long as you're in our household, you can never attend church. So I was like, okay, fine. And so the combination of exactly what you guys are doing, radio, and my sneaking, because I did keep sneaking to stuff, and reading lots of books and reading my Bible, that kind of pieced my faith through and formed a foundation.
Interesting.
So I know now I look back and I'm like, that was not what we would kind of describe as a normal teenage experience.
Not at all.
But fast forward, and then I met my husband at a Bible study. And even though our last name is Van Loon, which is very Dutch, his mom is Jewish. So he is also considered by rabbis and those who know Jewish. But we met at a Bible study. So it didn't thrill my parents. You would think they might be like, well, he's Jewish, but I met him at church. So that kind of took away any joy in that.
All right. So let me break in for a minute, Michelle. And I think I've told you this in the past when we've talked about this, but I have a good friend who is Jewish, and we haven't seen each other in a long time. But when we would get together and we would talk about faith, she would say, if I was ever to convert to Christianity, my mother would disown me because in her mind, that would be a repudiation of the Holocaust. It would be a disallowing of her suffering and her family's suffering. And I could never do that to her. Now, talk about you understand that.
Oh, I understand it very well. Probably better now than I did when I was a teenager and just super excited about Jesus. I'm still super excited about Jesus, but I have been, especially as a public writer, I occasionally find myself in the crosshairs of people who are either Jewish people who believe I'm a traitor. You know, I've gone over to Team Christian and I'm no longer Jewish, or from people that are anti-Semitic. I've at one point, my face was plastered on the cover of a white supremacist website after I wrote something about anti-Semitism. So I've kind of gotten it from both sides, and as recently as last week, actually. And that is a very hard place to be. When I know other Jewish believers who have had that experience of being disowned by their family or cut off from their community. I've also known people that move from very traditional Catholic households into evangelical church spaces, and their families kind of treat them the same way. I've also known Muslims who have had the same experience. And so it's really hard to be able to tell somebody, I'm not converting. Jesus was Jewish, and I am still a Jewish person. If an Adolf Hitler were to show up, I would be in line to the ovens, to the concentration camps, along with my Jewish brothers and sisters, because he wouldn't care that I said Jesus is Lord. It wouldn't matter. So,
and it matters to me as an outsider that I don't want to ever give my Jewish friends any impression that I am repudiating any of the historicity of the Holocaust either. I guess that's the other thing, is I want to be sensitive to that as well. And how do you think that happens? How can that be done well?
A lot of it has to do with living an honest and authentic life. Most people who are Jewish actually come to faith the way I did, through a strong and consistent witness of a Gentile follower of Jesus. because people like me I am problematic. I have in the last few years been involved in some interfaith kinds of dialogue experiences, which I wrote about in the Fathom piece, to be able to say in my early years as a Christian, because of the people I was hanging around with and going to church with, if there wasn't a direct evangelistic kind of outcome or agenda, then going or being involved in interfaith conversations was kind of off limits. What's the point? And
Right.
I actually think there's a great deal that we can learn about learning to listen and just be there and be present rather than rushing in with the agenda.
Yeah.
When we don't really know what people are up against. Your friend, Kathy, who is saying this would actually kill my mother and she would disown me, listening to that and being able to address that, you can't exactly understand what that's like if you come from a Christian family. You can't understand what it's like to lose your community.
And I don't want to devalue that.
Right. Yet you also want to be able to share the love of God. And most of the time we rush in with words before sometimes it's, kind of out of season, and we don't always know what it is we're talking about. The older and I'm a person of many words. I know that might come as a surprise to people. But I'm learning to ask questions and to listen so that I can ask better questions and continue to develop a relationship. And that goes both ways. Sometimes I find in the church who are these are my brothers and sisters as followers, we're all following Jesus together, and this is an amazing thing. But there's a lot of embedded anti-Semitism even in churches that seem like they'd be super strong Bible readers. I have stories. So, so being able to navigate that, developing some thicker skin, and recognizing that every act of bridge building, of peacemaking, it's kind of a lonely place out there on the bridge. It's a lot easier to just stick with one community or the other than to try to bridge those divides. And my article actually has application, I think, for anybody, whether it's political differences or cultural differences, that we're all struggling to figure out how to do this right now.
Mm-hmm. And where do I belong? Well, Michelle, thanks a lot. I mean, the landscape of the church, it'll take work to cross the chasms that divide us. It's a wonderful piece. Clearly, you've paid a price in many ways for following Jesus in your own personal life. So as that bridge builder, you and your husband together and the community that surrounds you, keep it up. Clearly, our work is not done here. Often we sort of fall back on our own ignorance or our own ineptitude. So it's good to have a truth teller help us to guide the way. So thank you for that.
Well, and thank you guys for being there, because you don't know who's listening, and somebody may just need a word of encouragement because it's hard out there. So
it is hard.
Thanks for what you're doing.
Love you, Michelle.
Love you,
Thanks.
Michelle. Yeah. Michelle Van Loon, she's the author of 5 books. Her latest is called Becoming Sage, Cultivating Meaning, Purpose, and Spirituality in Midlife. We'll take a quick break, come back. Is Pennsylvania a happy state? We're going to talk about the happiest states to live in. That's next.
Maybe Florida's happier than Pennsylvania. Could be.
All right. Sounds like sweater weather coming our way. Does that make you happy?
No, of course it doesn't.
Bring the old T-shirts on. Okay, listen. Speaking of happiness, I've got a listing of the 2021's happiest states in the United States.
I'm excited
Wallet
about
Hub,
this.
We look at Wallet Hub often. They have research to determine which environmental factors are linked to a person's overall well-being. Previous studies found that good economic, emotional, physical, and social health are all key to a well-balanced and fulfilled life. So they had these rankings, these listings, and they, like Ryan Burrs, yesterday, he's like, a numbers guy, crunch some numbers. So 50 states. Can you guess the unhappiest of the 50th, according to Wallet Hub?
Yes, I would like to tell you the most unhappy state is New Jersey.
No.
Nope. Florida.
Nope.
New York.
No. It's close to us.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
Really?
The unhappiest state is West Virginia, followed by Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Alaska, New Mexico. Now, I'm not going to say them all.
Well, Alaska sneaked in there.
Yep.
So we were in the southeastern part of the United States.
Yes, we were.
And then we landed in New Mexico, and then we went Alaska.
Where does Pennsylvania land, you might ask? Squarely in the middle. We are number 24th.
Oh.
24th of happiness.
What designates happy?
Happiness, emotional and physical well-being,
Okay.
the work environment, and your community engagement environment. All right? Let me give you the top 10 happiest states. Interested in that?
I would like to hear.
Okay, Pennsylvania's 24. We've said that already. Number 10, Massachusetts.
Do you think?
I've never been to Massachusetts.
You've never been to Massachusetts?
Well, maybe I've driven by.
You were in there because you went to Maine.
Yeah, but
you
driven.
have to drive through.
I'm driving. I'm like
Well, I'm
hanging
not saying
out.
you lived there.
I might have had a sandwich in Massachusetts. I mean,
Was it a happy sandwich?
I
That's
don't
the
know.
question.
It's a long time ago. Massachusetts. Then, surprisingly, New Jersey, number 9. New Jersey's a weird state.
Okay, I assumed. Now, I have family in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I hope they're not listening and getting upset that I thought they
might
were
be
on
now.
the happiest list. It's just that it's very close to New York City.
Which is not a happy.
It was just not a happy place, and so that's kind of what I assumed.
And New Jersey's weird because there's some areas that look like, the toxic armpit of America, like,
Yes.
fuel and fumes. And then there are other places you can go, oh, this is beautiful. It's idyllic. It's very odd. Okay.
It's also very small.
Yes, it is tiny. Number 8, Maryland. Mhm.
Really?
Number 7 is Idaho.
You know why that is?
All the potatoes.
Of course.
Everybody
they make
likes.
everybody happy.
Give me some starch that makes you happy. Number 6, South Dakota.
You've spent a large portion of your life there.
I have. Number 5, North Dakota.
Is that because of fracking?
Well, there's not a lot of people there.
Oh, so it's wide open spaces.
And there is I would say in South Dakota, especially, a large community engagement. I mean, there's not a lot of people. So people want to hang out together.
You know what it makes me think of? You really ought to give Iowa a try. Because we'll give you our shirt and a back to go with it. Is Iowa in the top 10?
No, it is not. No,
okay.
Number 4, California. I mean,
Come on.
It's a beautiful state.
Of course it
It's
is.
a beautiful
It's a gorgeous state. But the people there are spending unbelievable amounts of money on everything.
Number 3, Hawaii.
Well, yeah.
That's Hawaii. Number 2, Minnesota. And the number 1 happiest state, which should be no surprise considering the metrics, Utah. The Mormons.
Everybody's happy to be there and be together,
I guess so.
even without caffeine.
All right.
They're good with it.
And there we are. Pennsylvania, number 24,
All
the
right.
Keystone
I'll
State.
take the middle. We're middling.
All right, we come back. Why LuLaRoe belongs in the faith and work conversation. Get your leggings on. It's the Ride Home with John and Kathy.
Leggings are not
Coming
pants.
up next.
It's a sad pun.
I remember a long time ago, Amway.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Amway's still around.
Well, my brother-in-law used to sell Amway. He used to sell this like the stuff you'd spray on your shoes.
Yeah.
Clean your shoes. Then your shoes would get covered with his like oil, and then they would crack. Amway. How about home interiors? Remember that?
No.
They sold like, plants and, accoutrements for your home.
What about Pampered Chef?
Oh, yeah, sure. How about, isn't there like a candle thing as well?
Probably.
Like the home.
What about Mary Kay?
Oh, Mary Kay.
What about Avon?
The queens of it all.
What about Tupperware?
Holy smokes. You keep on coming at me, one after another. How about LuLaRoe?
I was unfamiliar with LuLaRoe.
You were?
I was. Because when I read the name, I thought it was a cosmetic thing.
Hannah Anderson is with us. She is author of 2 books, Made for More, All That's Good, and Humble Roots, How Humility Grounds and Nourishes Your Soul. She's got a really interesting piece in Christianity Today called Why LuLaRoe Belongs in the Faith and Work Conversation. Hey, Hannah, how you doing? Welcome back.
So good to be with you both.
Yeah, so Hannah, talk about where you live first off.
Well, I live in Southwest Virginia.
Okay.
So we've been there for about 9 or 10 years. I actually grew up south of Pittsburgh. And one of the things that I thought, our community is kind of rural. And a couple years ago, I didn't know anything about LuLaRoe either until it showed up in our community. And it kind of just spread like wildfire.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So they're leggings?
So LuLaRoe is an apparel company, but the only reason it caught my attention was because women in my community just loved it and started wearing it, and you could kind of track where it was trending.
Yeah.
But it's just more an example of an example I use in my piece in Christianity Today about the question of network marketing. And it really has come up recently because there's a documentary, Amazon Prime has a documentary out recently about LuLaRoe in particular, but it just raises a lot of other questions.
Yeah, I appreciate your piece very much because I've had a lot of the same concerns. And I know we have a lot of listeners who are probably working for one of these companies. So I'm not trying to dish on your brand at all. I'm just, I think we're trying to understand it. I think one of the things that you brought up in your piece that has jumped out at me is almost across the board in multi-level marketing organizations, there's some kind of strong Christian element.
Absolutely. And, for me, even within conversations about whether it's apparel or kitchenware, it usually is related to a friend of mine that's selling or someone I know in my church. And it has this faith element in part because, a lot of us who are Christians really want to prioritize our homes. And so sometimes for women, that means like in their childbearing years or when children are young, you might be staying at home and not working out in the marketplace. And so a lot of network marketing companies are kind of an alternative marketplace that women can tap into if they're not in a traditional job or career.
Right. So they bridge the gap in some ways from working at home or working in the corporate world or whatever.
That's the promise. And it has varying degrees of success. And, to the question of there's a lot of folks involved and everybody's got their own story. The thing that interests me mostly is the fact that this kind of business strategy really is responding to a point of pain. It's responding to a problem. And the degree to which it can solve that problem is another question. But I would love for us, as Christians and as families and as communities to say, why does this point of pain exist for women in the first place? Why is this so appealing? And part of the reason it's so appealing is because there's this gap that a lot of women fall into when they really want to care for their family, but maybe their employer or the pressures of the marketplace can't adjust to that. And so network marketing comes along and tries to fill that gap.
Right. Okay, so you could be your own boss, so to speak, in some way, right? But Hannah, what is the point of pain that you're talking about?
Well, the point of pain is that, particularly for women who want to prioritize their family or have young children, it is just nearly impossible to maintain a marketplace job with the hours and the attention span that a lot of careers ask for. Now, you might be able to do it if you have good support, if you've got family or you've got good caregivers. It might be possible, but oftentimes what is being asked of employees in our traditional spaces is a lot, and it's more than we can do and give the attention we believe we should give to our families for a lot of women. It's not the case for everyone. But this point of pain means that if traditional workplaces aren't adjusting and kind of finding compromises with their workers, then sometimes women have to actually leave those careers. They have to choose between all or nothing. And we saw a lot of that happening during COVID, where things were just impossible to carry both. And so we actually saw a lot of women falling out of the workplace. The degree to which that's a good or bad thing, is a question for economists and other thinkers. But the point I have seen with network marketing is that it has recognized that, and it sees women's vocations and careers as valuable and wants to tap into the talents of these women who have kind of fallen into that gap. And so, that's really it's great to be seen as a woman and to be acknowledged that you have gifts and talents worth developing. But the part of the question, too, is that the way you want to develop your talents, or is that the way you feel forced to develop them?
Is that your only option?
Right, exactly. That's the question. What other options are available if you want to stay at home, or if you want to do some work, but you need flexibility and you need to be able to be your own boss in order to control your schedule.
Right.
And so I think what's appealing about the structure really isn't necessarily the products. It's not even the way of selling to your, friends and community. That's not what the appeal is. The appeal, first and foremost, is the structure and the solution it says it's offering. Now, again, the question is it a solution? For different women, it may be, but it's not something we're talking about a lot from a work conversation.
Right, because the church often misses that, right? The theology of work in some way from a woman's perspective.
And it's kind of seen as like a satellite work choice,
or less than.
Or I don't know if it's less than, or it's kind of like you're talking about something happening in another culture. Like it's happening, but you don't really know much about it, and so you can't really speak to it.
But the verbiage around it, like where you're having a pampered chef party. Like it's a party.
Okay. So that brings up something, Hannah. That I have never worked for a multi-level marketer, but I've been approached by a whole lot of people over the years. Right. I've been to a lot of parties, and as an outsider, the thing that rubs me the wrong way is that I feel like my friends are using their friends to make money.
That you feel compelled to buy.
I feel compelled to buy, and I just it makes me feel gross. And again, I'm not trying to offend anyone in our listening audience who does this. I'm trying to be honest about how outsiders might look at it.
Yeah.
And I've kind of encountered that same dilemma, because one of the questions I ask myself is, if my friend were starting her own business and she were creating something or making something, I would be the first in line to support her and the first to buy her stuff and to tell other people about it as well. And so I think there's this tension with a company that is actually a traditional marketplace company potentially hiding behind our relationships. And the question of seeing it more as a party or a domestic part of our domestic friendship, something that's not in the workplace. And I guess with this piece, I just want to pull that veil back and say, well, let's talk about it as work, because that changes what we think is happening and what's actually going on. Because I think all of us want to support women who are trying to support their families and to develop their skills and their gifts. And if a friend of mine were trying to get a business off the ground, that she was creating things, like I said, we all would be the first in line to support that woman. And I think the conflicting piece and the piece that's not always clear is the fact that this is an external company kind of coming in through our relationships.
Right.
That's good.
And that's is what's difficult about being on the outside of it. So when people are on the inside of a multi-level marketing thing, Hannah, they're kind of like all on the same team. They all get it. They know the verbiage. They know there's like there's a collegiality that they have. Right. When you're on the outside of that, you definitely feel that you're on the outside of it, and it makes me nervous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think again that camaraderie is one of the appeals, because unfortunately what has happened with the way we structure our homes is that when a woman comes out of the marketplace, in many ways she's also coming out of the public space, and she's in a way sequestered into this private space that she has to compensate, do a great deal to maintain relationships. And there's a lot of loneliness that can come from being at home and caregiving. And so the appeal, part of the appeal, is the camaraderie and the sense of being together. But again, I think that's a deeper question underneath that the multi-level marketing company is trying to solve or to appeal to. And I wonder, as communities and churches, maybe we just need to find ways to reach out to those women who are at home and help them cultivate the gifts that are theirs uniquely and how God has called them.
That's good. It's excellent. I mean, I appreciate this. I knew nothing about, the idea of multi-network marketing and all this. And so you to peel back the cover on this, Hannah. This was a really interesting conversation for me to engage in.
Hannah, nobody's ever invited John to a party. Can you believe that?
No, I mean,
it's another world, John. It is something that I think women know instinctually, and we look at each other and we know what it means to go to a party. And it's fascinating to me how this has become a siloed conversation, which is exactly why I'm glad we're talking about it now.
Yeah, that's really good. That's Hannah Anderson. She's the author of Made for More, All That's Good, and also Humble Roots, How Humility Grounds, and Nourishes Your Soul. Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah, Hannah, good stuff. Why LuLaRoe belongs in the faith and work conversation. It's in CT, Christianity Today. Well done. October 19th, 12 noon, Doubletree by Hilton in Green Tree, our 15th annual Pastor Appreciation Luncheon, or PAL.
It's
Free.
a great time.
It's a fun time.
Free for every pastor, free for any associate pastor and their spouse. We would love to have you there. We have
Jack
a
Graham's going to be there?
We have a terrific time it's just a good time to be together, to meet people who work at different churches that are outside your neighborhood, that are outside your denomination.
Right.
And I don't know. I've enjoyed it every year I've
Me
done
too.
it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of concerns still about COVID and whatnot, but if you're so inclined, if your pastor wants to be a part of other guys and other women who are also pastors in the tri-state area, stop on by and be part of this. You got to sign up. You got to RSVP so we know how many people are going to show up. It's wordfm.com/PAL. You'll see it just on the main homepage. And Jack Graham, great speaker as well.
Here's the thing, though. You have to RSVP.
That's right.
You can't just show up, because how are we going to know how much food to make?
Right.
John and I.
All of a sudden you get like a ham sandwich in a bag.
Yeah.
That's not good. Really.
Plus, we need to know whether we need to get there and start cooking at 5 in the morning, or we need to get there and start cooking at 7 in the morning.
Right. Or if we're going to have salmon or filet.
Which is the question you and I ask ourselves every day.
Every night I go,
I say,
Johnny,
honey,
what's it going to be, buddy? Salmon or filet, my friend? And I'll go, you mean fish sticks or a burger?
Right. Or that frozen pizza we were talking about yesterday.
Hey, guess what I had last night?
A frozen pizza.
I did.
Get out of here. And was it bad?
No, it was excellent.
No, it wasn't
You know what
excellent.
it was? No,
You're
no,
lying.
this was. I kind of splurged. It was Newman's Own. Newman.
Oh, okay. So at that price point, you might as well just go to Domino's.
It was $7. I'm not
Domino's.
going to Domino's. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the frozen Paul Newman is better than the regular Domino's.
I was
don't
in
buy
my
that.
sweatpants.
No way.
And I was watching something on Netflix, and I felt good about myself.
All right, good. I don't want to take away your
Just
good
saying.
feelings about yourself.
But anyway, back to PAL.
You should
October
come.
19th. You should come.
But RSVP now, wordfm.com.
And there will not be frozen pizza. Guaranteed.
No,
Or fish sticks.
because that's bad.
No, it's very good.
It's not.
Say what you will about Google, and there's a lot to be said about Google, but woke up this morning and saw this really cool thing, artsandculturegoogle.com, where they have sort of peeled back and put in the spotlight Pittsburgh. We're one of 5 cities around the world who's been spotlighted by Google. And if you go to artsandculturegoogle.com, the headline is Pittsburgh embodies the American work ethic, grit, know-how, and a can-do attitude. And I'm telling you, it is as well done as anything you're going to see on the web. If you if you're got people from out of town, I sent it to my brother right away. I said, you got to check this out. I mean, it's got Blue Collar Burg, the city that built America, a tradition of innovation, and then so much more. I mean, pick your own Pittsburgh adventure, music and dance, creatives and creators, city of champions, made in Pittsburgh. They've got history, the rise of the steel industry.
There's things about restoring old theaters in Pittsburgh, looking at the Benedum and Heinz Hall and all of that.
So cool.
There's a whole thing about the Frick. It's called the City of Bridges for a reason. It's 150 years of Pittsburgh through architecture. They asked the question, what is the Cathedral of Learning? I mean, it's extensive.
It's really extensive. It's really, really beautiful.
It really is.
Artsandculture.google.com. And we're doing a poor job, I believe, of trying to encapsulate what it is.
Yeah. So
You have to go check it out.
So yeah. First of all, you should check it out. But if you're driving right now and can't check it out, I can tell you that it's one of these websites that you can just scroll through, and there are really effective, beautiful graphics that pop up.
Yep. Can we put this on our website?
From the right side. Yeah, I think I can do that.
Put that on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay,
I can
Chris
put it on
will do
Facebook.
that.
Okay, great.
And on YouTube.
And so there you can click on any of the options, like Made in Pittsburgh, and you can look at the Pittsburgh is a manufacturing hub. You can click on City of Champions and see all sorts of things about sports. You can click on creatives and creators and see stuff about art in the city, music and dance, about the steel industry, about the history of Pittsburgh, whether it's in industry or it's in music. I mean, it's something else.
Yeah, it's one of these places you go to and you go, I'm going to fall into this little wormhole here. I'll see you in a couple of hours.
And of course,
right?
there's the Mr. Rogers section.
Of course. Yeah. I just love it. I mean,
Yeah.
really, really.
There's a whole thing about Teenie Harris.
All these beautiful old black and white photos of the city. And I don't know, if you're from Pittsburgh or if you love somebody in Pittsburgh, it really sort of encapsulates who we are as a people, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful.
There's some pickles there. There's not one parking chair, though. There's not one chair out in the street.
Yeah, they may have missed something
Couple
that's
of things.
significant.
Got to bring that up.
For sure, yeah.
Don't you love looking at old photos? Old
Historic photos?
Yes.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
You and I both love that.
I do. I love it so
Old
much.
pictures of Forbes Field or of, the Steelers playing in the 70s.
Or that, that was then, this is now.
Yeah.
They show a corner somewhere
Pittsburgh
like
Then and Now, that book.
Isn't that great
I mean,
stuff?
I've looked at that 100 times, I bet. Yeah, it's really, and we're so fortunate to live in a city that has old things in it. If you travel anywhere in the western part of the U.S. or even in the Southwest, there are just a lot of places where everything is new.
Yeah, what fun is that?
There's nothing old.
Right.
I mean, we know the history of the nation. We know why it's like that, because things were happening in the Northeast much sooner than they were happening in the West. But it's a whole different way. It's just a different feeling to be in a city where everything is new versus being in Pittsburgh,
However,
or Boston, or New York City.
But that's what breaks my heart about going downtown now. Because downtown, used to be like this big, vibrant, cool, old place.
It's not vibrant right now.
It's not vibrant, and
But a lot of that is COVID, and I'm hoping that
a
over
lot
time,
of it is like the remodeling of Fifth Avenue, the PNC takeover, and it's like, what is this whole thing?
But we still have things like the Union Trust building.
Yeah,
we
Station Square.
We still have classics. The Grand Concourse.
Right.
We still have the churches. First Pres and Trinity and the Lutheran Church on Grant Street.
Oh, speaking of that, we saw today that the U.S. Steel Building is celebrating its 50th anniversary on Thursday of this week, which is super cool. Did you
That's
ever dine at the top of the triangle?
I don't think I ever did.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah,
I thought your dad would be like on
yeah,
that.
I don't think I ever did.
I went there one time.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
And how was it?
Oh, incredible. I was
Is it still
super
there? It's
excited.
not there
Oh,
anymore,
it's been
is it?
gone since, I think, 2009.
Okay.
Maybe even sooner than that.
Is it unpopular to say that it's an ugly building?
Oh, I don't think it's an ugly building.
Okay.
No, I love it because it's like, the rusted steel.
It is.
No, I don't think it's ugly.
Okay. Good.
I wououldn't say it's an attractive building, but it's a particularly Pittsburgh building.
It's somewhere between ugly and attractive.
And,
I mean, I'm grateful for it. I'm not trying to pick on the building. I'm just saying I don't
think you're going to hurt the
but
building's
look at the
feelings.
Union Trust building. I mean, that's like a gem. It's like one of the most gorgeous buildings in the city ever.
But, the original tenant was U.S. Steel, the U.S. Steel building.
Right.
So they made it out of steel with that particular mold in place.
Okay. Look how defensive you're being.
I know.
Look
Look at me. Hey, don't be jumping on the U.S. Steel building.
I'm fine with it.
Although, do you call it, what do you call it?
I call it the U.S. Steel building, even though it's the USX Tower.
Exactly.
And a lot of people
call it.
No,
it's not the USX now. It's UPMC Tower or whatever it is.
Is it actually called that?
I think so.
I don't think
it's
so.
USX Tower.
I thought it was still the USX Tower.
And what is USX anyway?
I don't know.
Exactly.
But I thought it just had the letters at the top. Because, in all those buildings, the letters at the top are not necessarily signifying of the name of the building.
I think UPMC occupies like from the 23rd floor upward.
Okay.
They occupy most of that building.
I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. That should tell you something.
What are we talking about?
Nonprofit.
Yeah. Nonprofit? What do you mean nonprofit? Oh, let's not even go there. We're happy that they're there and all the jobs they provide for us all.
Coming up next, we're going to talk about what it's like to grow up in a really tough family. Greg Steer's with us. He's the founder of Dare to Share Ministries, how a quiet, bookish kid came to faith while living among rageaholics. That's next in The Ride Home.
There's something, an old adage about, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family.
It's true.
Right? I mean, some people have really incredibly amazing, fabulous families. Other people kind of go, what's happening here? Greg Stier is with us, and we read his testimony in CT, which is just, it's shocking and beautiful and heartbreaking all together. Greg Stier is the founder of Dare to Share Ministries. He's the author of Unlikely Fighter, the story of how a fatherless street kid overcame violence, chaos, and confusion to become a radical Christ follower. And Greg, hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, Greg, thanks for sharing your story. And for our listeners who haven't yet read it, just want to give them, the barest of outlines as much as time will allow for us to talk about your background. So talk about being a kid with your mom at home. What was that like?
Yeah, it was crazy. I come from a family of bodybuilding, tobacco chewing, beer drinking thugs, and that's just the women, sadly. I mean, it was a family full of violence. 3 of my uncles were competitive bodybuilders. The 4th one was a judo champion and Golden Gloves boxer. The 5th one was a bouncer at the toughest bar in Denver. And they were all just, violent. It was a scary, scary family. My mom was the only sister in the group, and they were all afraid of her. She used a baseball bat, and I probably saw more blood as a kid before I turned 15 than most adults will see their entire lives. And it was just scary. I was afraid of my family. I was afraid of my neighbors. I was in the highest crime rate area of our city. Every city's got a city, so does Denver. And we were in that highest crime rate area, and it was dangerous. And a preacher from the Deep South, whose nickname was Yankee, this sounds made up, but it's true. He's still alive, still preaching. Reached out on a dare to my toughest uncle, shared the gospel with him, and it began a domino effect in my family. And one by one, everybody, through radical circumstances, came to Christ. And I was a witness to the whole thing. I came to Christ and became a preacher as a result. So, yeah, it's a wild story. When you're raised in it, you don't think of it as wild. You think of it as your childhood.
Yeah, your story.
Yeah, and putting it all down in a book form. I preach all over, but when you write it out, you kind of have to go back to that place, and it was pretty traumatic to relive these memories, and bring the audience with you. So I'm grateful to God looking back at the power of the gospel to change my life and change the trajectory of my entire family.
Greg, talk about your relationship with your mom. What was that like? How did alcohol figure into it? What was the bond between the two of you?
Yeah, Mom, she was one of the blackest of the black sheep, so to speak, and partier. I was a result of a party. She met my biological father at a party. They partied. She got pregnant. He found out he was in the Army. He got transferred from Denver to Atlanta. Didn't want to have anything to do with us. And she drove from Denver to Boston to have an illegal abortion. It was before Roe v. Wade. And my stay with my Uncle Tommy and Aunt Carol, they talked her out of it. Just in the last minute, she came back and had me. And I always wondered growing up why she would just break out in tears when she looked at me oftentimes. And I think she felt guilty. And she never knew that I knew all this stuff. My grandma filled in all the details for me when I was 12. And by that time, I had come to Christ. Most of my uncles had come to Christ. She did not think God could ever forgive her for all the things she'd done wrong. She used to say, "You don't know the things I've done wrong." And I knew them all because Grandma told me. And I just kept sharing the gospel with her as a middle schooler. From the time I was 12 to the time I was 15. And I remember when I was 15, I walked in, I go, "Ma, that's enough. I don't want you to go to hell. I don't want you to live through hell anymore. You need Jesus." And that's the way you kind of come at my family, is straight on. And not through the side door. You got to kick in the front door. And she was, "All right, tell me one more time." And she was smoking a cigarette, and I just shared that Jesus died on the cross. He paid the price for his sin, rose from the dead. She goes, "What about the bad sins?" I go, "They're all bad to him. Nailed to the cross, Ma. All you got to do is trust in Jesus." And she took a drag, and she said, "All right, I'm in." And she put her faith in Christ, and I was so grateful to see hope in her eyes for the first time.
That's fabulous.
And 17 years ago, she went to be with the Lord, and somebody asked me, "How's your Ma doing?" I go, "She's doing good. She stopped smoking, dancing all the time, singing at the top of her lungs, best shape of her life. She's dead. She's in heaven. She's in the presence of God. Always good." So
that's wild.
I love my mom. She was a great mom. She did the best that she knew how. and raised me and my brother. I get choked up thinking about it. She was a great mom, and I thank God that I had the privilege of leading my mom to Christ and discipling her.
Wow. We're talking with Greg Stier. Greg Stier joins us. He's with us at Dare to Share Ministries. He's the author of Unlikely Fighter, the story of how a fatherless street kid overcame violence and chaos. So, Greg, I mean, growing up, you had to see all your uncles and especially your mom, and you had to think, I must have been adopted. I mean, I am not cut from the same cloth as these people.
No.
This is something totally different. I mean, your uncles made fun of you. I mean, in the piece I read, they bought you a doll.
Yeah, one of my uncles, at a Christmas celebration, they got one more last present. The whole family was there. And I was a quiet kid. They were all afraid I was going to get eaten up by the neighborhood. I read books. I didn't fit in. I was like a non-atheistic young Sheldon, and he was like, hey, here's one more present. I open it up. It's a doll. I go, it's a doll. I thought it was a mistake. He goes, I figured you didn't have a dad, so you like to play with a doll like a little girl. And I shoved it in his stomach. I go, I ain't no girl. And I'm 6 years old at the time. And
wow.
Everybody laughed. They're like, oh, maybe he's one of us. You see, he's got a temper. But it sent me on a search. I'm actually grateful for that, because that's when I got serious. And I needed to find out, why am I here? How did I get in this family? Who am I? And when I trusted in Jesus 2 years later, I found my Heavenly Father. And I found my identity. And, when my grandpa died, my uncles asked me to preach. I'm 15 years old, and they asked me to preach the gospel at the funeral because they wanted one last uncle, Uncle Richard, to trust Christ, and they knew he'd be there. And I got done preaching that sermon, and I knew I'd found not just my father, I found my purpose, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Fabulous.
And so Unlikely Fighter is really a story of my family. It's also a story of my journey to find my identity and how the gospel, man, that's secure. Our nation is divided. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all the divisions, politically, racially, all that. What's going to unite us is the gospel of Jesus Christ. We've got to at least unite the church around Jesus Christ, him crucified, risen from the dead. That's the message that can bring hope to this world. And that's what my life mission is. That's what Unlikely Fighter is all about.
We're talking to Greg Stier. He's the author of Unlikely Fighter, the story of how a fatherless street kid overcame violence, chaos, and confusion to become a radical Christ follower. You can watch the show right now. We're streaming live on YouTube at The Word Pittsburgh. Greg, I want to hear about how you mentioned that your one uncle came to Christ first, and then they all did. But what was that like? I mean, this was not a bunch of middle of the road people who just decided one day they'll become religious.
Right. These are rough, violent men.
Yeah, they're very violent, and they turned all that aggression toward bringing people to Jesus. My Uncle Jack brought 250 people out to Yankees Church in 1 month. He's bringing street fighters, bodybuilders, street thugs, criminals. He brought them in. He wanted everyone to know this good news. My Uncle Bob, he'd gotten a barroom brawl with a guy, beat a guy to death. Thankfully, they resuscitated the guy, but in the back of the squad car, covered in blood, he thought, I just killed a dude that had stabbed his best friend, Doug Johnson, 5 times. I interviewed Doug for the book. I mean, all these stories are true. Matter of fact, I had to leave out some detail just because it was gruesome, Yeah. And but when he went all in for Christ in the back of that squad car, started a Sunday school bus ministry, brought over 100 kids every Sunday morning to Yankees Church, and then went to Florida Bible College, graduated from there, became a pipe fitter in St. Louis, preaching the gospel every step of the way, still preaching the gospel to this day. And so, my family's an all-in family, so when they say, when it was violence, they went all in. And when it was, Jesus, they went all in. There was a little bit of spillover, like
I bet. I was waiting to hear this.
Christ, my Uncle Jack sharing Christ in a sauna with another bodybuilder. And, in the sauna, he's buck naked. And he's sharing Christ with this buck naked bodybuilder. He's a bodybuilder. There's another guy from a different religion who's a bodybuilder. He keeps interrupting. And my Uncle Jack goes, hey. My Uncle Jack looks like the Wolverine, but a beefed up version. He goes, I'm trying to tell this guy about the love of Jesus. Why don't you shut your stinking mouth? And he continues to share Christ. The guy interrupts again. He goes, yo, you interrupt again, I'm taking you out. The guy continues to share the gospel. He interrupts again. Jack just popped this guy. The guy fell down on the ground, looked up, and goes, Jesus didn't go around hitting people like that. He goes, well, I ain't Jesus. I'm Jack, you know, and that was my family. They just did, you know, there was a little spillover, but
Greg, where'd you grow up?
it was, you know, it was awesome to see
Yeah, I bet it was.
the transformation. It really was, and it still blows me away to this day.
So the culture you're describing, though, I'd forgotten you said Denver. That doesn't sound like what we think of as Denver.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people say that, but I travel around. I travel to cities all across this nation. Every city has got a city.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's Columbus,
Yeah,
Ohio. Doesn't
yep.
matter if it's L.A. Doesn't matter if it's Denver.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's Omaha. Every city's got a city. It's, you know. So, and then we were just in that part of the city. And we were in the Grinder. It was where it used to be called Little Italy. But then where the Smaldone family was kind of the organized crime family.
Okay.
But then it also became Little Mexico. And we were right in the grinder between the Italians and the Latinos. And it was violent. It was a violent, it was the highest crime rate area, in our city. And my family had something to do with that before they came to Christ.
And to stake your claim, you had to be in the middle of it all to just make sense of it all.
Or to survive.
All right, so then you made reference to where we are today. So there you are. You know, you're raised in a street fighter family. You see where we are culturally, whether you're a Christian or not. I mean, this country's an upside down mess. So how do you make sense of all this? You're preaching the gospel and trying to be a man of peace and wisdom. I mean, things are bad out there, aren't they?
It really is. And you know what? My thing is this, is that if Christians, no matter where they're at politically, you know, I mean, I talk to Christians all the time, and they'll tell you where they stand on vaccines or masks or whatever, or politics. And I'm like, you know what? If you were that bold about the gospel, then maybe we'd reach our nation by now for Christ. And again, everybody's got their political views, and that's fine. But I'm like, man, as Christians, our primary passion has got to be the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when we see people, it doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, Independent, black, white, Latino, whatever, we need to see them as people in desperate need of the hope of Christ. And we need to do what we can to reach them all. So that's my heart. That's my passion.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's unite, and let's share the gospel. And if we're going to get persecuted over something, let it not be over our political beliefs or our stance on, a virus. Let it be over the fact that we love God and we love people, and we want to make the introduction.
Fabulous.
Boy, Greg, we link arms with you on that.
Sure do, 100%.
It's such a pleasure to talk to you today and to hear this story,
It
Greg.
is, yeah. Hey, before you leave us, though, talk to us about Dare to Share. People that want to connect with you and know more about your life and your ministry. Tell us about that.
Yeah, daretoshare.org. We train and equip teenagers around the world how to share the gospel. I believe teens come to Christ quicker, spread the gospel faster. We're doing a live simulcast on November 13th, Dare to Share Live. And if you have internet, adult leaders, and are willing to do the outreach, it's free, totally free. 7 hours of outreach on November 13th. So just daretoshare.org. And my book is actually released November 9th. That's when it releases, and pre-orders are available today. Every dollar, every dime goes back into the ministry. I've never taken any money from any of my books. It's just all to mobilize a generation. We want to reach every teen everywhere.
Well, listen, Greg, we appreciate your passion. Clearly, you've got a lot of that.
Send us the flag when the book comes out so we can have you back
let's do
on
this
talk
again, okay?
We'll do it. Thank you, guys. God bless.
Yeah, and you as well. Greg Stier, Dare to Share Ministries. And like you said, the book's coming out. We thought it was coming out now, but good.
yet.
Let's have him back again, right? Unlikely Fighter. It's coming out in November. The story of how the fatherless street kid overcame violence, chaos, and confusion to become a radical Christ follower. we're back. Happy that you're with us here today. Okay.
This is normally our Does This Make Sense segment.
Yeah.
We've got a little problem, technologically speaking, with the music.
Does
but
that make sense?
I don't know if that makes sense. Do you think it makes sense?
Yeah, computers. You know, anybody has a computer. You know there's going to be a problem sooner or later. So we're not immune to that here.
Which is why driverless cars are a problem.
Does that make sense? Driverless cars?
That wasn't what I was going to say, but I'm going to say it now. Simply because when something breaks down like this, it's going to break down. Computers are going to break down.
Right.
Right? Your iPad is going to stop working at some point. Your phone's going to wig out. Your microwave, whatever. What happens when the driverless car wigs out?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's kind of like the invention of the automobile. People were driving around with that little stick, and it took like a lot of years, and unfortunately, a lot of accidents and people to die until things got straightened out.
Exactly.
Which is what's going to happen.
Right. So we're going to have to live through that. I mean, does that make sense?
I would think so. We're back. Oh, good.
Okay. Wait. Okay. Play the
Yeah.
music. Okay. Let's start over.
Yeah. All right.
There it is. It's comforting, isn't it?
It is.
Does this make sense?
Does what make sense?
I'm not talking about driverless cars anymore.
Oh.
No, I'm talking about something
That was like
different.
a prequel.
No. You ready?
Yeah.
Furniture polish. Now, I'm not talking like tongue oil or something to like refinish your furniture. I'm talking about the pledge.
The pledge.
Or there are several brands. I can't think of the other ones right now that you're going to spray on that, my grandmother used to spray on her
We used to do
rug
that.
and like clean
We
the
did that.
furniture.
Do you remember the theme song?
No.
Lemon pledge, very pretty. Makes your furniture. I don't know. That's what I remember.
I'm sorry I missed that.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah. Does
Well,
that make sense?
Well, I think anybody who's interested in cleaning, I really can't sort of like criticize their cleaning.
I'm not trying to criticize it. I'm just asking does that make sense?
Well, for some people, it makes sense. I mean, if I'm going to use furniture polish, I'm not going to use the aerosol spray. So it doesn't make sense.
Okay, that was the question.
All right.
So the answer is no.
Well, does it make sense to you?
No, because I feel like you're putting a layer of gunk on your furniture.
Right.
You're trying to get stuff off of your furniture, but in essence, you're putting things on your furniture.
Well, that stuff's like a very 60s invention.
yeah,
Wouldn't you
but
say?
it's still around.
Lemon pledge, very pretty. Okay, so spray on furniture polish does not make sense.
I'm going to come down on the other side saying that does not make sense.
All right,
that
okay,
doesn't
good.
make sense. Don't you? We just take the dust off of it.
Right. All right, so you and I are sort of like on the same wavelength
Are
here
we?
today because we got like products. Does this make sense? Just for men, hair dye.
Oh,
Guys, don't be dyeing your hair. Let it go. It doesn't make any sense to me. This is what God gave you. Deal with it and work with it, is what I say. Now, women, that's a different story. But men, I mean,
why is it different though? It is different, but I'm just wondering why is it
don't you
different?
think here's men with gray hair, they look distinguished,
Well, that's true.
right?
Right. Women with gray hair, what?
Right.
I mean,
Look
some
old.
women with gray hair look really elegant.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
then some don't. Some look old. Like if I was thinking
I
today
don't know,
because
that's-
my roots are growing in.
Yeah. So you gonna go gray?
No,
Okay.
never.
Never ever.
No.
Never ever.
No. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, you never
What if you were
say
like
never,
salt and
ever.
pepper?
Maybe.
Salt and
Anyway, all I'm
pepper.
saying is that I was looking at my grays today,
Yeah.
and I thought, because next week is my week to get my hair colored, and I thought, why is it that women just do this and men don't do this?
I mean, if I had enough hair, I don't have a whole lot of hair, but what's there is not really gray.
No,
But I see guys, and you go, dude, you're dyeing your hair, and everybody
and it
knows
looks
it.
bad.
Everybody knows it.
It looks like Grecian formula.
Exactly. Or
You could go to a salon and pay the same that I pay to get your hair dyed.
who's gonna do that?
Well, it'd be better than using Grecian formula.
Spray on wax, no sense. Hair dye, no sense. We look at the newspapers every day, you know, online for the most part. And some newspapers, I love them because unexpected things, you kind of go, really, who was thinking about that? Someone was assigned this subject, and then they reveal this, you know. So here, this is the Wall Street Journal. I mean, the Wall Street Journal is interested in finance, but in today's Wall Street Journal, here's an article: Why TV tray tables offer more than nostalgia. TV trays. When's the last time you thought? Look, in our house, we never had TV trays. My gram had TV trays.
Okay.
My wife, when her mom passed away and they, you know, took apart the house, she brought home some TV trays. They were horrible. And I don't want to use a TV tray.
Why is that?
It seems tawdry. It seems tawdry.
Why does it seem tawdry?
It's a little kind of rickety, either wood or metal thing.
Yeah.
And it's not that big.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel.
I use a TV tray every single day of my life.
What?
Every day.
I just called it tawdry.
And every day. That's okay. I can take it.
I mean, you use one every day?
Every
for what?
day.
Wait, what? You're sitting in
Okay.
front of the TV set having like a TV dinner?
Not having a TV dinner, but well, first off, so the current life I'm living, where you know my house is going to be remodeled
well,
shortly, so I don't have hardly any furniture.
It's your best life now.
Right? I don't have a dining room table. I don't have a table, so we have to.
The TV tray comes in
It's what we
handy.
eat on, right? Okay, but even previous to that, when I did have a dining room table, if we were doing if we were watching a movie together or whatever, we were making popcorn, whatever. Everybody has a TV tray. Everybody's got their little table. So you
Well,
have your
wait,
drink, you
don't
have
you
your
have like a-
popcorn on that.
Do you have a coffee table?
Yeah, but it's not
An end table?
It's not. I mean, it's kind of far away. The TV tray. It's not a TV tray. They're just folding tables, is what we call them.
It's a TV tray.
Okay.
It's a TV tray. And you know what I'm
Anyway,
talking about.
are you
How
up?
about
Of
the metal
course.
ones? The metal
The
ones
metal
with
ones
the
were
flowers.
great. The black ones with all those flowers on
That
it.
screams
mine are,
1967.
Right, mine are wood. Mine are wood. They're oak.
Oh, they're very nice.
They're very nice. They weren't cheap. But anyway, always it's always available at my house. So if you're ever lonesome for a tawdry TV tray experience, you can come over.
It's just something. Look, believe me, I'm as blue collar. You know me.
Yeah.
I grew up in Swissvale.
I know.
Okay.
Let's turn to Christy Stockdale, our producer.
Oh, Christy, did you grow up with TV trays?
Yeah.
And now, what were they made of?
Wood.
There we go.
What's going on in there?
The mic's falling. Are you watching it fall?
Your joints are creaking.
It's too much Golden Girls. Okay. So they were wooden.
Yeah.
Okay. And when did you use them? How did you use them?
Usually for like parties or
Yep.
I have a big family, so if we have like Thanksgiving dinner, we can't all fit at the table.
Someone gets stuck
Sure.
with a TV tray
You
for
get stuck with-
Thanksgiving?
well, usually it was
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids.
The little
yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. All right.
I'm not trying to be
Okay, now
snooty
let me.
here by saying they're tawdry.
No, that's okay. Believe me, I can take it.
My
Now listen to this. All the years I was growing up,
Yeah.
we ate on TV trays every single night.
What?
Every-
You never sat at the dining room table to eat?
Nope.
You sat around the TV set?
Yep. Every night.
Oh, I feel bad for you.
Yeah. You can pity me all you want.
I mean,
That's the way it was.
there were 9 of us at the dining room table.
Yeah. See, our dining room, there were only 3 of us when I was growing up
Yeah.
because my sister was already out of the house. And the dining room was like for when you had guests or when you had a lot of people.
Okay.
But if you had 3 people, you weren't sitting at the table.
Really? So, I mean, to this day, whenever we sit in the living room and eat dinner, I feel like I'm cheating.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm less than.
Tawdry.
I do feel a little tawdry. Like,
But like it's not proper enough.
not proper. It's just like I'm not giving due diligence to the work that's been done for the meal that's
Right.
been created.
Well, that's a very good point.
And the conversation
That's
that comes
a very
from
good
us
point.
gathering around
I'm
the
not
table.
saying
I'm not saying I'm better than anybody.
I'm not saying
just
the
tell
way.
this is how I
listen,
feel.
I'm not saying the way I grew up was the.
I'm not looking down my nose
no,
at
no,
that.
I know you're not. I'm not taking it that way, and I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying that's what it was. So when we ate, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
we were watching Jeopardy, or
At 7 o'clock.
or we were watching the news.
I mean, I still love it. Believe me,
Yeah.
it's a treat for me to sit and watch TV while I'm, having a meal.
yeah,
it is.
except that you feel a little like.
It's just my own personal thing. Like,
Sure.
like I go, oh, John, you should be better than this or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So was there anything about your house when you were little that you thought, wow, that's awesome? So we're talking about something that you look at and say, well, I don't want to do that. Is there anything about your house that you were like, wow, that's I can't believe, like, that's really cutting edge, or that's really.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so my mom, God bless her, I don't know how she did this. I mean, seriously, she was working on a shoestring budget. My mom and dad, the two of them together, and they would like, especially my mom. Usually, I would come home from school, and my mom had somehow magically, like on her back, changed all the furniture in the downstairs. Like everything was different. You walk in and you go, "Oh, Mom, that looks fabulous." However, I remember this one time that like they did like a gigantic remodel upgrade. And when they did this, I thought, what in heaven are they thinking of? But what they did was, and this is like a real 70s thing, there was the main wall, the largest wall in our living room, where there were two big windows. They took that wall. I couldn't believe it. And they had a gigantic
Mural.
drape.
Oh, right. The one that goes the full length.
The full length. And then behind that in the windows were shears. Mm-hmm. And they were on drawstrings. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yep.
When they did that, I thought, we are so chic. We have ascended now. We are not in Swissville anymore. We may be in Mount Lebanon for all I know. We may be in Sewickley. But this was like, to me, I was like, oh my God. We were like on the front page of Town and Country magazine. I couldn't believe that they pulled this out of where, you know, Don Hall, working at the Union Switch and Signal, was all of a sudden ascending into some fashion heaven that I knew nothing of as a teenage boy.
That's good. That's really good.
The wall of curtains with the shears and the
Yeah.
what they're called, drawstrings.
No, they're not.
I don't know what
I
they
forget
are.
what
but
they're called.
I mean, and there they were, you know, very particular. You had to bring some expert in to make the
Right, because they're triple pleated and they're on.
Exactly.
curtain
Triple
rings,
pleated. How about you?
Oh, something that my parents did. Well, I remember being
Chic had
I
arrived.
remember being in like 7th grade, and they got a new love seat,
Oh, I love yeah.
and it was a love seat. It wasn't a
Wasn't a couch.
sofa, right? And it wasn't a chair. It was a love seat. And something about that to my 7th grade. I think I was younger than that. I might have been in 5th grade when this happened.
See, that's
I remember thinking,
that particular age.
right,
A love seat.
a love seat.
Well, that's for two people.
Right. And that was just like me sized. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I could like lay down and like watch TV
Right.
on a little love seat.
We had a love seat too. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt pretty good
Did
about
it
that.
match the couch?
No,
Oh, it was different.
it didn't. It was just different. Yeah. And my parents had never really bought furniture before, like in my lifetime. They'd bought furniture before I was born.
Yeah.
And so I'd never seen I thought, that's really something. Christy, do you remember a moment like that?
Something chic that arrived.
I got new carpet in my bedroom.
Oh.
In my own personal bedroom, I got new carpet.
Oh,
Did you
my
get to choose the
gosh.
color?
No.
Oh, okay.
But still. And like, my parents didn't get new carpet in their bedroom.
So it was just you.
Well, me and I think my sister. But we got new carpet.
Nice.
Oh, it was the.
And how old were
loveliest
you?
thing. I have no idea. I was young.
Yeah.
But
But it smelled like new carpet.
it was the greatest thing ever.
So I think it has to do with the age that happens.
Right. Like you said, 5th grade.
Yeah.
I'm saying like maybe 6th or 7th
Yeah, yeah.
grade. Somewhere in
Yeah,
the
somewhere around there.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're worldly enough to know there's design trends or
Right.
things
And,
change.
and people buy things and your family doesn't buy things.
Oh, you got that right.
You know what I mean? And so when they do buy something, you're like,
And the adults did it themselves. Like, you know, there were many meetings about this.
right.
And you thought, oh, that's how the world works, right?
Right. People decide things.
Decisions were made
Yeah.
about color and style,
Right.
and all of a sudden, there it is.
Okay, how about this? When I went to college, now I went to college for free. God bless my mother in the University of Pittsburgh because she was an employee of the university. And so I went to school tuition free.
How smart was that?
It was,
God bless.
Listen to me.
Nanny.
anyway, when I went to school, okay, I thought, as people do who are egocentric like myself, my family's going to fall apart.
Because you're
My
gone.
parents are going to get a divorce. You know what I mean? Now that I'm gone.
Right.
Well, the first thing they did was buy air conditioning for the house. Okay. It had been hot as blazes
Go,
my
kid.
entire life. Okay.
You're
They
outta
got
here.
air conditioning. The second thing, they bought a new refrigerator. They bought a new washer and dryer, and they bought a new television. Now, we'd had the Zenith console for about 60 years.
Yeah.
Okay. It was Christmas. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, they hit the reset button
Yeah,
on
so
you.
there was no they weren't considering divorce and
No, they were upgrading.
dissolution. They were Everything was new.
We're not going anywhere. We got a cool house with a nice new TV set. Everything's good around here.
Jeez, I came home. I thought it's a palace now.
Isn't that weird? You know, like when you leave the house, like, I mean, there were 7 of us, so it took forever for everybody to leave.
Right? It took
mean,
like
seriously.
25 years.
They were probably like so happy. Like the last one left, they were like, thank goodness, we're never getting pregnant again. That we've had it. But I remember going back. I don't know why this was. I was living, you know, like on my own, but somehow, I don't know why, just some weird scheduling thing. I had to come back to my parents' house on Thanksgiving Day, and the house was empty because there was, you know, the Thanksgiving dinner was somewhere else. But I had to go there, and I took a shower, like, you know, in my parents' house. And it felt weird, like I was like an out-of-body experience.
Like you were an imposter.
Exactly. Like I knew the bathroom. I had, you know, taken thousands of showers, fending off those 5 sisters. Get out of here. It's my time.
Well, you had one shower.
Oh, one shower for 9 people. 9 people.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing.
I mean, and believe me, that precious bathroom time with 5 sisters and a mother. As a guy, I never got in the bathroom. Never. So it was really weird to be like out of body experience. Like as an adult, you know, a kid in college, and you're going back to revisit your parents' home, and you didn't belong there anymore. You had moved on. That was weird as well. Isn't growing up strange?
It is strange. It really is strange.
You know. Anyway, I don't know. These chic curtains, the TV trays.
The love seat and Christy's
carpet.
bathroom carpet or bedroom carpet.
I love it. It's what grown up's all about. We'll take a break. Be back in a second.
first dates. Now, that's a very strange kind of social experiment we do here in the West.
What do you mean first dates?
Just first dates.
Like going on? Oh,
Going out on a first date.
yeah.
I mean, it's awkward, right?
For everybody.
Some countries, they just arrange the marriage and there's no first date.
Which brings me, and I'm watching the show, but I'll talk about that.
Right. I know you and your dating shows. Anyway, an
great
article
show.
today in Study Finds about poor table manners turning people off on the first date.
Of course, it
Okay,
should.
that's just it. Christy, I'm going to be asking you questions.
I expected it.
Oh,
In a new poll of 2,000 Americans, men are almost twice as likely as women to break up with someone or end a date early because of their partner's food habits.
I'm surprised it's men. Really?
However, men are also more likely to admit having the same habits themselves. So they do it, but they don't want you to do it.
Judge not.
Yep, that's what it is. That's what study finds. The top offense, talking while chewing. Okay. Millennials are outspoken about this, with 61% saying it actually bothers them so much they would politely ask the person to stop doing it on the first date. Gen Zers are a more tolerant group, saying that they'd simply ignore the food habit and try to get past it. Okay. On a first date, 42% believe that chewing with your mouth open is reason enough to end the night early, to just bail.
Yeah.
Dropping food on the floor and then eating it is unforgivable to 49% and also worth ending the date early. And slurping food is a big no-no, but is not worthy of ending the date early. It's bad, but not like season ending. Okay, so you're on injured reserve, but you're not out.
Christy, on your first dates,
How do you feel about these
have
items?
these things happened to you?
They have happened to me. I've never ended the date early, mostly because the guys are paying. So
Right, of
I'm going
course.
to take my free meal.
Sure, that's
I'll
you know
suffer
you're just
through your
you know what you're just
grossness.
practical.
Yeah.
You're just being practical.
I mean, why not take the free meal?
Right.
Now the talking through chewing, we all experience that.
Yeah.
It's one time or another. What about the chewing with your mouth open?
I can't. I would have to say something.
Would you?
Yeah.
Is that bad?
Yeah.
What about the dropping? What about the dropping the food on the
Oh,
floor? and
like
eating?
at an actual restaurant?
Yeah.
That's
Who's
gross.
doing that?
Yeah,
That's super
that's
gross.
nasty.
That just seems to say that we are in two different life spaces.
I mean,
At a restaurant where who knows how many people's shoes have
Thousands.
walked and people
Okay,
spitting.
What about double dipping?
You got to do the flip. Don't dip. Don't double dip.
2 in 3, 69%, are likely to order a dip when dining out. Okay?
What?
Yes, including salsa, guacamole, and queso. Those are the top 3 options. Okay?
but double dipping.
Right. The largest divide over where on the plate the dip should go is between men and women, but they agree that it's a real turnoff with a new person if there's a double dip. That happens even one time. You? How do you feel?
I never double dip ever.
Even if you're at home with your family?
Yep. Grosses me out.
I agree.
I don't know where your mouth's
You
been.
never-
Don't do that.
You don't
Yeah.
double dip?
No.
Okay, do you flip and dip?
I flip and dip.
Okay.
What's flip and dip? What, the other side of the chip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never considered that. Really?
No, that's good.
It's like a whole other, like a whole vista's opened up.
I think it's a more considered option.
Yes.
Okay. One last thing when it comes to food.
It's still dirty.
The number one thing men and women agree on is that when it comes to a condiment, when it comes to a dip, salsa outpaced everything else.
Not guac.
Guacamole, queso, nothing.
Wow.
Onion dip, nothing. I'm not that into salsa.
Oh, I love salsa.
Do you?
I do love salsa. I'll take guac over salsa any
Me
day,
too.
though.
I would too. Yeah.
So would I. Okay.
All right.
Be careful on your first date if you're going on one tonight.